We're here at Spacetime Studios in Austin, Texas to talk to the team behind the Legends series of Android MMOs. We're going to take a look at what goes into making these games and where the company goes from here.
Arcane Legends. Arcane Legends is the fourth in the Legends series of games. We started years ago with a game called Pocket Legends, and Pocket Legends did extremely well for Spacetime Studios. We followed up with a couple of other Legends titles, refining the kind of gameplay, the sort of experience that you could have, the various features in the game, and wound up in a position for Arcane Legends where we could take the best of everything. An extremely fast, extremely responsive, action-oriented combat system, really deep skill trees, and an addition of companions. So we have pets now in the game that make it an incredible and different experience. Arcane Legends is our best-in-class mobile MMO. It's extremely easy to get into, extremely fun to play, but has an enormous depth, the sort of depth that you would expect from the kinds of games that we make. Long cycle, lots of quests, lots of things for you to do player to player, adventures both cooperatively and against your buddies. Arcane Legends really is so far our finest game, our finest multiplayer game, our finest MMO, and by far one of the best mobile games I think anybody's going to play. It's a really rich title.
How long did it take you or the people that you work with at Spacetime to decide on Arcane Legends as the fourth installment? Were there any other ideas being floated around and then you honed in on Arcane Legends?
As the Chief Visionary Officer for Spacetime, it's my responsibility to bring products to the fore, and in the case of something like Arcane Legends, it felt like a really natural progression for the team. I work at a couple of different levels. I have partners that founded Spacetime, and together, we work through some of the more difficult creative issues, but I have an incredible team of game designers. Eli Holding, the design director, Nicholas Johansson, for instance, the head of content and game systems. These guys really understand these kinds of products and had an idea that we would make the ultimate mobile MMO, and that we would take the best part of our combat, the most explosive and interesting aspects of being these characters, and then the richness of the quest and content, everything else that we've done over 3 previous mobile MMOs, and essentially mush it all together into something extremely badass. There were a number of different products that we thought about along the way, and they're all within our wheelhouse. The team is extremely good at multiplayer real-time, and so there are all kinds of products that really exploited that. Our history involves things like spaceships, 4 or 5 people driving a spaceship to ground combat, and that kind of thing. So a lot of that came up. We love racing. We love vehicles of pretty much any type. We also love more patient and strategic games too. And in the process, before we decided that we were committed to Arcane Legends, we did think up a bunch of different other properties, but realistically, when we compared those and how successful and how fun they would be to making really what would be the very best Legends kind of game, Arcane Legends just stood out over everything else. It's the most fun, easily the most accessible game for us, but also we knew we would make it extremely, extremely fun.
Dark Legends came out. How long did it take for y'all to decide that you were ready for a 4th installment? And to go along with that, how long did it take from deciding on the concept to it actually bearing fruit?
We moved pretty quickly around here at Spacetime, so the decision to move forward with Arcane Legends really took about 6 weeks, maybe a month or so. So in the process of creating an MMO game in the way that we do it, we get towards the end of our development, and the game is playable, and the game is fun, maybe has some issues, and we're working out those issues. It's a very different phase. Months prior to this, like for Dark Legends, which launched early this year, we were working very hard just to make sure all of the content was in all the various game systems, all the items, and all of that kind of stuff. But that really starts to tail down quickly prior to the release of the game. And we're just doing bug fixes, and we're just refining the product. So it's in that period that all of the creatives within the business here start to say, well, I'd love to do a game like this, or why don't we do racing, why don't we go into space again, or how about monsters, and all that kind of stuff starts to happen. And while that's happening, we're finalizing Dark Legends, we're getting ready for it to release on all the various platforms, and so we have a few good ideas then. And then probably right after Dark Legends made its debut, we started seriously looking at the 4th Legends title and looking at what decisions we made around Dark Legends that we liked and what we didn't. There are things about Dark Legends in particular that we loved. We really adored the combat. We wanted to do something in a multiplayer context that nobody really done before. We wanted to do action-oriented charging skills, no auto-locking target, no white damage loop. We wanted it to feel really visceral. And from Dark Legends, we succeeded with that. And we wanted to see that in a magical medieval context where I could be different player classes that you understand, but then now doing stuff that's just really different, where I'm charging up in order to get various combos from my player skills and my weapons, and that just felt like an awesome opportunity for us there with Arcane Legends. But from that point, which I guess puts us in the very early part of this year, it took us between, I would say, about 5, maybe 6 months to move from the idea we're going to do it to, all right, it's done. We've got a lot of stuff in the game. It looks a certain way. We've got items dropping, so on and so forth. That was a significant amount of work, but the team knows what they're doing. The team knows how to make these kinds of products extremely well. So making the basics, the general population, the basic AI, basic weapons, all of that moves very fast for us. It was about the distinctive qualities, the pet system, and how the companions grow with you, how the skills and the skill trees work, and all of the stuff that was a huge improvement on the existing Legends titles. That really took the time. But a few months worth of development, and we had a functional, very fun MMO, and we just needed to start adding those features that were going to make Arcane Legends distinctly Arcane Legends.
When I look at Pocket, which was the first installment in the Legends series, setting-wise, do you think that there are some similarities? How are they similar? How are they different? And what did the designers do to make Arcane Legends distinctly different and fresh?
Well, we have a style as a studio, and that's something that I'm very proud of. When we do medieval fantasy, we have sort of a snarky, kind of funny look at what medieval fantasy is all about. And when we decided to make Pocket Legends, Pocket Legends is very much what, in the first few days, Pocket Legends was a lot like Arcane Legends is today. It's a lot more serious. It's humans, world of evil, humans and the power of goodness and light and all that kind of stuff. But it was pretty quickly in the process we decided that we were going to go with animals, and that's sort of its own story with Pocket Legends. And that world, though, that world is still a medieval fantasy world that's more of a storybook, more of a fractured fairy tales, and less of a serious and dark fantasy. And that's something that just as a studio we do. So when we decided we were going to go back to medieval fantasy for our 4th Legends title, we knew we needed to do some stuff to freshen it up. And so we took a little bit more of a serious approach, not to the tone, but to the way we told the story. In Pocket Legends, the story is told in a pretty haphazard way, where it's just the quest dialogue and a handful of cinematics. For Arcane Legends, we wanted to treat the story with a lot of respect, because we worked very hard in order to create characters that you could understand, with motivations that made sense, and so we invested really heavily in a cinematic system, in conversations, in ambient barks, and the way in which the world reacts to the player's progress through the world. And we feel like that's a major change of just how the technology and how the design team has decided to change the way that the world works. But largely what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring the focus back to believable story of motivations and having evil characters who at their root have dysfunctions that you can understand, and that as a hero your opportunities to win the day are pretty clear, and that's the way the story begins. Some of the key differences between Arcane Legends and Pocket Legends, it just deals with the depth of the story and the kinds of characters that are involved trying to move the world forward. One of the things that we from the very get-go with Arcane Legends, though, is to make the pet companions critical to the story. We had this vision where the world in Arcane Legends is seething with this arcane magic. And that magic is available to the player, but its availability has a lot to do with the companions. In fact, the destiny of this entire world is tied up with these pets. The kitty cat and the dog and the bird and all that. They actually have an epic destiny that you're a part of. And we're not revealing anything about where that goes, but that's really the critical distinction.
3 classes in Arcane Legends: the Warrior, the Rogue, and the Sorcerer. What do they each bring to the table? And how did y'all decide that these were the best 3 classes to open up with?
From our perspective, it's a classic trilogy. So the trinity, rather, the classic trinity of those 3 classes makes it fun for us to create content where there's monsters that are going to eat a lot of health points. So it's important to have a tank. It's going to be monsters that are going to have a lot of defensibility, that are going to need to be locked down, that you need to crowd control, that you're going to need to put certain DPS moves on in order to defeat them. That's all really fun. And keeping it to those 3, making a chord out of the tanking, the DPS, and support, feels like we can make a bunch of different kinds of content that make the player groups really entertained. Entertained as groups of 3 and 4, entertained as 1 or 2 as well. And that's really where all that comes from.
I know you briefly touched on this earlier in terms of like extra character classes or the destiny of these pets in Arcane Legends, but can you hint at any other features that you've got planned in Arcane Legends, even if they're just like, Santa hat Christmas gags or anything like that?
Well, we're working on our holiday content right now. We've got a couple of ideas, and I don't know where the team is with that, but I think there are a couple of different things that we really enjoy. Like, for instance, in Dark Legends, there's a ghost that pops out sometimes when you're destroying stuff. We've got one idea where there's this sort of evil elf that shows up when you smash some stuff, and maybe he's got some things for you. I don't know, but it's going to be fun, and that's the main thing, is that the team is having a blast coming up with ideas, and ultimately the ideas that's going to make it are the ones that we know are going to be really fun for the people playing it.
With Arcane Legends, we now see 4 games in the Legends series: Pocket, Star, Dark, and Arcane. How long before we see the 5th installment in the Legends series? Have internal discussions already started? And does Spacetime see themselves moving potentially in another direction?
Finding another mindshare, like another genre. Whether we want to go back to horror, or whether we want to experience, something maybe modern or science fiction. Those things are on the table, but there's not a lot of urgency surrounding them. And I think it has to do with the fact that we're in love with Arcane right now, and unlike the previous game, both Star and Dark, we're immediately looking at next titles. This one I want to hang out with for quite a while. I'd like to see where the next campaign goes. Really want to pay off some of the story stuff that we've built into it, and really try to make it an epic upon epic experience.
Any last words before we wrap up?
Oh, well, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate you spending the time to talk. It's always great to talk about Spacetime. I'm really proud that I work here, and that my partners and we've gone through a lot, and the team that has been here, that has put out so much effort and has given us so much of their time and their talent. It's humbling. I mean, working in independent games, coming from a corporate game reality, every day is a reason to be thankful.